Well, unfortunately, we started our second season here at Benfica with a couple of Super Cup shockers. In yesterday's episode, let's hope today we can bounce back in the Liga Portugal when we take on Porto and O Clássico and also Vitória de Guimarães. Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 100 of Rookie to Royalty here on Shaun Does FM with Benfica. I hope you're doing well and come up today. We go back to Liga Portugal for probably one of the few times this season. We take on Porto and O Clássico and then a Vitória de Guimarães team who did take points off the top view quite a few times last season. So hopefully you guys are looking forward to that as well as a little bit of a transfer update too. But this comes off the back of our Super Cups to start this season here with Benfica in yesterday's episode. If you missed that one, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. If you enjoy watching me lose, you would have definitely enjoyed that episode because unfortunately we backed up getting FM'd by Sporting with an absolute pantsing by Manchester United there in the UEFA Super Cup. So really poor episode for us there, 0 from 2 in trophy games so far this season. Thankfully, we've bounced back in the league in 2 games we've played since then, albeit against pretty average opposition. First up, we took on Aruca and picked up a 4-0 win. Goals there to Kalafitoglu, Hudland, Castillejo and De Rosa in the second half coming on for Piskunov, who continues to struggle early stages of this season. And then we took on Gil Vicente and picked up a 3-0 win. De Rosa again there with a goal alongside Escudero and Habib Diarra with his first goal for the club there with just under 15 minutes to go. So thankfully, a perfect start to the league season does mean that we sit on top. But obviously, off the back of how things started in yesterday's episode, would be quite nice here to make sure we can actually beat a Porto team that we were pretty good against last season. Did lose them away from home in the league, but it was a few days off the back of a League Cup final, which we did beat them in. So fingers crossed here can assert our dominance over these guys yet again in O Clássico. If we do, then probably don't need to worry about it too much for the remainder of this season. Can hopefully focus a bit more on competitions like the Champions League. But they have indeed got a new manager off the back of the Club World Cup, where they finished bottom of their group with 0 wins from 3, which was pretty embarrassing. They've got Patrick Vieira there in charge, the man who formerly was at Newcastle, back when they were giving us that job interview off the back of him getting sacked. So an interesting move there for Patrick Vieira here at the start of the 2033-34 season. We'll see how he gets on there at Porto because it feels like their star is on the decline a little bit. But so far, they've been okay in Liga Portugal. 2 wins off the back of an opening day draw to the Vitória de Guimarães team who will take on second up in today's episode. But before then, we've done a little bit of transfer business off the back of those Super Cups that we did play in yesterday's episode. Of note, yesterday got rid of Kawamori and bought in Hudland in that central attacking midfield role, that shadow striker. Since then, a little bit more movement, somewhat future-proofing one position in particular. Now got rid here of a couple of midfielders. First off, Mahmoud Hamali made his way to Al Fadi. He is a homegrown player in defensive midfield, but was only third choice, especially off the back of the signing of Diarra. Did feel like we could let go of him for that fee of 11 million going over to Saudi. That value, just like those players that we sold going into yesterday's episode, does look a little bit overhyped there, but he's made his way there to Al Fadi. Didn't play for us much last season, so we shouldn't miss him too much here in this Benfica team, but maybe more Franco Devia to Lazio for a fee of 24 million, rising up to 30 as value. Again, feels super overpriced going over there to Serie A, but honestly, with the addition of Habib Diarra, he probably would not be able to be registered for the Champions League squad anyway, so I thought there could get rid of Devia, a decent player with a bit of potential, but it had gone down since we first got here. He's kind of stuck between a centre-back and a midfielder, but is not that great at either of them. So I felt like he was a player that maybe we could cash in on before his value does go down and people realise he might be a little bit of a fraud, but just couldn't really find a way to get him into our first team here at Benfica. So I think we've done it right there considering the club did sign him for 8.5 million. But a bit of a shame we could not get him a little bit more into our first team here at Benfica, because I'm pretty sure he was quite high up on the next gen a couple of seasons ago. So got a fair bit of money in for those 2 players, which did allow us to bring in a new first choice goalkeeper. One of the reasons that we've done this is because Andre Lunin is wanted by Saudi Arabia as well as AS Roma. 34 years old, final year of his contract. If we check this out, he does not want to renew it. If we can go in here and see, yes indeed, he's not interested because of the interest being shown from elsewhere. So I thought that just in case he does leave and we can sell him at 34 years old. We'll bring in Diogo Miguel from Vitória de Guimarães. That definitely spices things up potentially for that second game in today's episode, but he was their first choice goalkeeper and the only player that really we could bring in that position with the money that we have from those sales of those midfielders, who actually attribute-wise is an upgrade on Andre Lunin. So he's come in there as a new first choice goalkeeper. That potential isn't too great and also doesn't enjoy big matches, but hopefully we'll get through with him for just one season and then can go big on another goalkeeper if we're still here in 1 year's time. So Diogo Miguel comes in there from Vitória de Guimarães for a fee of 18.5 million. The other plus of that is he is indeed homegrown nation, so it does help out there having a homegrown nation goalkeeper alongside Tal Halders as the backup here with this Benfica team, and we'll see what happens with Lunin before we get into transfer deadline day, which will come off the back of these two games that we do play in today's episode. So that's what we've done in terms of the transfer window for now. I dare say there won't be too much more going on. We've only got £320,000 left and 54k spare in our wage budget, but hopefully here can pick up a big result. It is a home game, so you definitely expect us here to pick up a win. Unfortunately, Fabio Renato is still out with an injury he's been carrying for a little while now, but hopefully might be back in time for that Vitória de Guimarães game. Second up in today's episode, of Beefy Escudero's been doing a decent job as the backup left back, but certainly more of a centre back than an actual left back. So fingers crossed here can keep our perfect start to the league season going off the back of the Super Cup shocker. And this also is a pretty big match day that we're coming back for, because if we go forward to the Sunday, Sporting take on Braga, the two other unbeaten teams so far here in Liga Portugal. So we definitely want to pick up a win and put the pressure on those two teams, who I dare say at this point of the save might be a bit stronger than that Porto team are. Just looking at where they finished last season as well, of course, is how bad that team was at the Club World Cup. Pretty poor there from Porto, albeit these days with Patrick Vieira in charge, things could be on the improve there at our O Clássico rivals, but fingers crossed here can get the job done. Obviously, our new goalkeeper Miguel does make his way in a bit taller than Lunin too, so hopefully might be a bit more solid under the high ball. Not that Lunin was too bad from those, but let's see here how he gets on in his first O Clássico. Also Prelidi in there at right back and Escudero at left back, because unfortunately both Fortea and Nardi are on heavy workloads. Also we've got Silva in there instead of Renan because he's on a heavy workload as well. So quite a few changes there in our defence for this game. But apart from that, it is our first choice 11. So quite hopeful here we can get the job done. Our defence can do a decent job despite all the changes, and we can pick up a big win here to kickstart our season off the back of that really bad thrashing that Manchester United gave us, and of course that big old FMing that Sporting handed us in the Portuguese Super Cup. The first highlight here is Porto on the ball from a free kick in the traditional blue and white stripes, which of course we do not like. Being at Benfica, we did enjoy the hate watch on them at the Club World Cup, seeing as they were so bad at that tournament. A good chance there early, we float a ball in there for Henrique, but unfortunately that one does loop over the bar quite safely. But it looks like here on the front foot early, putting quite a bit of pressure here on Porto, even though the highlights are starting with them on the ball, but they're struggling to make their way here out from the back. Medina has to go back there to their goalkeeper in Heidel, and they continue here to try and make their way out from the back here with some slow play. That is an absolutely shocking pass there across the face of the field, and Aiden Kalafitoglu can pick it up. It's an absolutely shocking giveaway, that one there from the Porto player down the left-hand side. Let's see here if we can pick him out. It's Niemeyer. He does get pressed there by two of our players, but really that was a poor option. Gives the ball straight to Kalafitoglu, who can run his way through that Porto defence and bury that one into the top right corner. A little bit of help there from the underside of the crossbar, but still, that is a good start. So 1-0 up here inside 15 minutes in this O Clássico. If we beat these guys quite comfortably in this game, I don't know if we'll come back for O Clássico much more this season, because I do feel like Porto might be a team on the slide. So fingers crossed now we don't start to ball this. You know, I look like a fool here against our derby rivals. Unfortunately, can't quite keep the ball there from that thrown inside of the final third, but a poor clearance does mean we get this back of Mateus Henrique. We'll try and put that one over their goalkeeper, but unfortunately comes up there with a good save. But certainly on the front foot, like you'd expect here from European champions, albeit now feels like a little while since that was the case. It was a great start to this week, but since then we've not been that great here with this Benfica team. But Porto have been up to nothing so far in this game, even though they are holding 61% of the ball, so a little bit disappointed with our lack of position here in this game, but in terms of what we're doing with the ball, it is quite encouraging. Let's see here if we can grab one more goal before halftime. We can't. Only a 1-0 lead. Escudero is on a little bit of a deep yellow heart, but to be fair, he's actually going quite well out there in that first half, so I can just tell the guys here that they're doing well. Piskunov again is going pretty fairly on a 6.6. Actually, would have started De Rosa in this game, but we played a rotation when we beat Gil Vicente for the most part, and because of that, he come into this one on a heavy workload. Otherwise, Piskunov might be in a little bit of trouble, so he definitely needs a goal soon. Otherwise, we might consider De Rosa for that Vitória de Guimarães game, but making our way here just up to the hour mark, it's still only 1-0 really. Do want a second goal here in this game. We'll make some subs to try and get that to happen, because now a few players drop down to red hearts. Escudero will come off there for Nadi. Rodriguez for Calafitoglu, the goal scorer. Not the head to work too hard for that one with the poor pass and drink out for Hudlund, who has probably been the best of our new signings in hitting the ground running here in this Benfica team. And off the back of those subs going through, there is a highlight here that we do start to see Porto just able to briefly scramble it away, but now we get back on the attack here through Emmanuel Nadi. Floats that ball far post there for Mateus Henrique, who'll hit it home. The flares are gone off there in the crowd. You love to see it over here in Portugal. We finally make it 2-0. A poor pass there as again they try and make their way out from back. Diarra gets in the way of that one, and Nadi can float this one far post, and Henrique there, he rises like the Brazilian salmon that he is and buries it in that bottom right corner. So finally grabbed a cushion goal here in this game, which it feels like it's been coming for a fair while, because Porto are still yet to do anything on the attack in this game. And now we're going to take off there our most recent goal scorer in Henrique. It will be for Matsoso, who sits down there on the bench. De Rosa is also down there, and ideally we'll bring him on for Piskunov. But as I mentioned before, that heavy workload, not sure it's a great idea, so I think instead we'll give some game time to young Miguel. He's seeing, as he is still under 20 years old, could use those development minutes there on the field in the last 15 of this game, especially if Porto finally do something here in terms of their attack. But seeing as it's only a 2-goal lead, we'll start ever so slightly time waste here in this game. But to be fair, not too sure if it's that needed, with the fact that they have not done anything on the attack so far, and now we're going to make our way to the final 5 minutes. Seeing as it's a derby, we'll just play things safe and chuck our wing backs here onto full-backs instead, and that should hopefully be enough, as well as lowering the tempo, time wasting even more, and telling our fellas to be disciplined as well. But this has been a pretty solid win, honestly. Thought Porto might test us a little bit more with Patrick Vieira in charge. That was pretty easy because they did absolutely nothing in that game. So really a quite routine win for us here with this Benfica team that should hopefully put the pressure on both Sporting and Braga when they take each other on in a day's time. That table could be a bit more nice to us when we come back off the back of this game before we take on Vitória de Guimarães. But that was a very solid win. Porto, as I said, not too sure if they're actually that tough these days in this Portuguese league. No doubt now they'll thump us when we play them away from home later on this season in the league, but they really have been struggling in the save at the end of last season as well as at the start of this one. They are now sitting down there in 5th, 5 points behind us off the back of that 2-0 win. We'll come back, recap that Sporting Braga result before we take on Vitória de Guimarães. So a very comfy win for us there. First up in today's episode over Porto, and going forward off the back of that a week, can see the games that happened a day later. Braga actually picked up a win there away at Sporting, so they now sit on top of the table, having already played here on this 5th match week. Let's find them. They picked up a win. It was 3-2 over Boa Vista just before we take on Vitória de Guimarães. Actually, somewhat surprisingly, did get beaten there by Famalicão. They actually haven't had that good a start to the season. They took points off Porto on the opening match day, but that may not be that good at this point of the save, even though these days they sit in 4th, but they are behind, I'd say, the big three currently in Portuguese football. Vitória de Guimarães, though, last season did take a few points off the big four quite regularly, though, including us. So this could be a little bit here of a banana skin game. Obviously helped out, though, by the fact that we did just sign their first choice goalkeeper. Not that we got too much of a look at him in that previous game, because he had absolutely nothing to do, and also maybe that Famalicão loss is countered by the fact that they had the Europa League playoff, which they did win both leagues off. So these guys have Europa League football to look forward to, which might explain that slow start to the season. We've just got our fixtures in for our Champions League defence this season, and let's have a quick look at them before we get stuck into this game, because this probably will be what we come back for at the start of next week. Just get rid here of all these other competitions. And again, our draw is quite tough. It might be a bit easier off the back of actually winning things here last season, but no, we've got Monaco first up at home, Chelsea away, another tough one there early in our Champions League campaign, as well as Aston Villa away. Red Bull Salzburg really is the absolute banker of that one, being at home. Atletico Madrid this time at home, but last season that's the only team that did beat us in the league phase. Of course, Monaco is actually a rematch from the round of 16 last season, and we'd come from 3-0 down after the first leg away from home, so that actually is a big first up clash. And off the back of Atletico Madrid, we've got Manchester United, that one at home, but of course just got beaten quite badly by them in the Super Cup. And to round things off in January, maybe some more winnable games, albeit away from home, could make things a bit tricky. We've got Galatasaray there away in Hull, and then Borussia Dortmund in front of the yellow wall, and those guys are certainly a bit better, even though they've got Ryan Mason in charge. Of course, we were the favourite for that job, but never got offered even an interview with those guys. So very tough games for us this season in the Champions League. But of course, the defending champions, I'm expecting to go quite deep. But thankfully, our squad for this game is in much better shape. Fabio Renato has come back from his injury, and Jesus Fortea picked up a little bit there of a brief bruised shin, but thankfully is available for this game. The only one missing is Manuel Magalhães, but he can be resting as Renan is back to full fitness, so it means that Rui Silva can drop down to the bench, and we can go with our actual first choice 11 here at Benfica for the first time since the likes of Diarra and Nyanzu have come to the club, and also those other transfers that we have made off the back of that Club World Cup too. So let's hope here we can back up that good win we picked up over Porto. Another one here, this time away from home though, against the tricky Vitória de Guimarães team, albeit off the back of signing their goalkeeper as well as their start to the season, which has looked a little bit average on paper outside of the Europa League playoffs. Maybe not going to be quite as tricky this season as they were last, but hopefully can actually beat these guys. I think both times last season, these guys actually held us to draws, both home and away, albeit one of those games did come around a Champions League knockout tie. We were focusing our first team on those Champions League knockouts, seeing as the Portuguese league was pretty much wrapped up without officially being so by that stage of the season. So quite hopeful here we can pick up a win and kind of get into a similar position that we did last season, where if we go quite deep in the Champions League knockouts, might have a big enough gap on top of Liga Portugal where it doesn't matter if we rotate in this competition. But first highlight here does have us on the ball just shy of the 10-minute mark, quite similar how things started off in that Porto game, and we make our way forward here through Castillejo. Nice ball there to Henrique, squares it, and it's Hudland who puts it away. Piskunov is still in there over to Rosa, who is quite injury prone. It's the only reason that Piskunov's keeping his spot here in this team, but to be fair, Piskunov has kind of helped there with that goal, even though he didn't actually touch the ball, just drawing some players away there, while Hudland actually made the run and could put away there that square from Henrique and make it 1-0. So thankfully again here, off to a good early start, but this time a bit more through our own work instead of a poor pass from Porto. And we do take the lead as Vitória de Guimarães here, try and get on the attack straight from the restart. And to be fair, keeping the ball quite well. Castagna there starts to cut inside and does take on the shot, but thankfully from a fair way out. And still, we are yet to see Miguel get tested. Of course, the former teammate of a lot of these players, he might have known there exactly what was coming and knew there was nothing to worry about there, because that player is a bit more rubbish than the ones we've got here at Benfica. But back on the attack here, Nadi will float that one far post. It actually makes its way there to cover Toglu, who had a pretty big chance there, but couldn't quite put it on target. So a great chance there for us to make it 2-0. Can't quite get it done. Now Piskunov there with a free kick, and unfortunately, we can't quite head that one home. Not too sure who actually got there here on the end of that one. Maybe it was Diarra, but can't quite keep it on target. So really had some chances now to make this 2-0. To be fair, Vitória de Guimarães are actually getting shots off in this game, so already looking better than what we saw from Porto, but thankfully nothing in the back of the net yet, albeit now should be a great chance for us here, because that looked like it was a penalty. Rubens there brings down Henrique, but unfortunately must have just been on the edge of the box and outside it, because that's not being given a bit of chance now from a free kick, which Piskunov can't quite put on target. And then Henrique just heads the ball out there for no real reason. So a bit of a waste there of a good attacking opportunity. We do stay only 1-0 up deep here into this first half, but maybe one more chance before halftime. Castillejo actually quite fortunate to keep that ball. Nyanzu plays that one to Castillejo, and now Haaland will find them Henrique, who squares it for Piskunov, who still can't score because it's come off Ogbu, and it is an own goal. So pretty similar, both the goals we've scored so far in this game, getting the ball forward through Castillejo. Haaland there plays that one out to Henrique, who again looks to square it. That was going to be a goal, it felt like, for Piskunov, but it actually came off ego. So no chance there for Piskunov to finally end this goal-scoring drought here to start the season. We do take a 2-0 lead, though, which I think we deserved based on the highlights we've seen so far in this game. Again, most players out there are doing a decent job, and there's no yellow card trouble, so don't think here need to do anything too drastic at halftime. We'll just get stuck into the second half and hopefully put these guys away and make sure that they don't find a way back into this game. And a free kick here to Calafat-Toglu, a couple of big options there on the right-hand side, which for some reason he hasn't looked to take. Will be a good save from the new first choice there for Vitória de Guimarães after we pinched their previous ones. Let's see here if we can score from the subsequent corner. And no, we can't. No one home at the far post. Nyanzu should be pretty good in the air. That's the reason we've just swapped him straight out with Rui Silva. But so far, that hasn't quite been the case. And again, just not linking up too well there as we go looking in the centre of the box. But Nadi here on a good run will pick out Henrique, who rockets that one against the base of that right-hand upright. And we can't quite put these guys away properly here in this game. So still doesn't look like we've played our best here with this Benfica team. But thankfully, at this point, are actually picking up the results, unlike in those Super Cups in yesterday's episode. Again, here a highlight. We're on the ball only 5 minutes into the second half. So there's been quite a bit of action here in the second part of the game. Just hasn't quite resulted in as much as I was hoping for with all the highlights that we have been seeing. Now, Nadi does start to make his way forward here. Sizes up his man, does a really good job there before playing it back to Diarra. Floats that one far post for Henrique and gets some help there from the inside of that right-hand upright. But again, he rises like a Brazilian salmon and puts that one away. So eventually get a goal here for our early dominance in the second half. And that really should put this game to bed. So maybe Vitória de Guimarães, another team who aren't quite at their best compared to previous seasons here in Portugal. Albeit, as I said, maybe Europa League, that might be helping as well, as the fact we've just signed one of their better players to be our new first choice goalkeeper. Still, not really too sure what Miguel has to offer because he's had no shots on target in these 2 games we've played in today's episode. But we'll make a sub here, actually bring on Renato Singer as he needs some game time coming back from his injury in place of Fortea off the leg. Picking up that yellow card also, De Rosa will come on for Piskunov, who's just not in great form. Rodriguez for Calafat-Toglu, and Silva will come on for Nyanzu, sitting on some relatively deep yellow hearts. So we'll make sure that they're not going to use too much energy before we get stuck into a Champions League campaign in a week or so's time, and that is looking quite tough as we saw earlier. There's some big fixtures there. Monaco, who pushed us the closest anyone did in the knockouts of the Champions League this past season, and also the team that thrashed us in the Super Cup, and Man United as well. So definitely going to be tough for us to try and hold on to our European title. If we don't, then maybe that's a bit of an excuse to go looking for a job in an actual top 5 league, because obviously we've won a Champions League now. Really, we want to lift something like a Premier League, and I think then we'll be proper managerial royalty. We'll make our final sub. Come on, Salvo comes on for Castillejo. Maybe that wasn't the best idea now that Henrique has dropped down to a red card, and especially because he's picked up a red injury. So I think he late on in this game we're going to play without the shadow striker. Haaland can do a job at right wing. To be fair, that's what's quite good about him. He's quite versatile. So we're going to be missing that shadow striker. Didn't hurt us too much against Bayer Leverkusen in the second half of that Club World Cup quarter-final. But it might do here because I've cornered here to Vitória de Guimarães, and they put that one away from the flick on. So just to play things safe here, we'll start to time waste quite frequently. Now that we are down to 10 men, let's hope that injury is not too bad, because Henrique has actually started to find some quite good form for us in today's episode, but that is a pretty fortunate goal they flickered on, and Magalhães, with the first shot on target against him in the time we've seen of him here at Benfica, does concede a goal, but thankfully it doesn't matter too much because we do the job before then and pick up a 3-1 win on Rick. A really good game being involved in all 3 goals. So a bit concerned about that injury. Hopefully it won't be too bad and keep him out for too long, especially with how tough our Champions League fixtures they do look. A couple of away trips to England early on off the back of hosting Monaco. We hopefully can show them what we're all about in the league phase, but it does mean that we stay on top of Liga Portugal. Now, goal differential too is in a very healthy state off the back of that 3-1 win. Let's just hope that Henrique injury isn't too bad. So a couple of good solid wins for us there in Liga Portugal in today's episode to wrap up this week. A nice bounce back there from that Super Cup shocker we had in yesterday's episode, albeit a bit of a concern about Mateus Henrique, those 2 assists as well as that goal he picked up in that game, his best one since coming here. Let's hope it's not too bad. And unfortunately, it's a red injury, albeit we sent him to the physio. It's only 3 weeks, so we might miss our first couple of Champions League games, but honestly, that could be a lot worse, so I think we'll be fine. We've still got Matt Soso and also Pedroto, a homegrown player who is floating around the first team, so we shouldn't be too bad without Mateus Henrique. Also, Kabangu can do a job there if we need him to, so let's hope that does the job for us while Henrique is out off the back of his best performance since coming to Benfica in the transfer window to replace last year's player of the season and Eden Husic. But I think that'll do it for today's episode. A couple of good wins there in Liga Portugal, and also, of course, we got those Champions League fixtures, and that now will be a big focus for the rest of the season here with this Benfica team as we try and defend our European title. But if you enjoyed today's episode, then do make sure to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you're enjoying the series as well, also make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on so we'll come back at the start of next week for Monaco and Chelsea in the Champions League. We'll hopefully get our Champions League defence off to a good start there. So until then, thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.